Michael Jordan is a name that echoes through the books of NBA history and stands tall as the pinnacle of basketball excellence. We all know the accolades, the championships, and the MVPs. They're etched into the very fabric of the game. But what about the psychological warfare that unfolded on the court? The chilling moments when players realized they were in the presence of a true basketball deity. When MJ stepped onto the court, it was like a switch flipped. He was an unstoppable offensive force. He struck fear into the hearts of defenders with his moves and uncanny ability to sink clutch shots from anywhere on the floor. And it wasn't just about the game. It was about asserting dominance. But the intimidation didn't stop when the final buzzer sounded. Michael Jordan was a man of unyielding determination, both on and off the court. Whether it was his fiery on-court persona or his unapologetic voice in the locker room, MJ wasn't about to back down. His hypercompetitive nature was a force to be reckoned with, driving him to speak his mind and stand tall, regardless of the consequences. Now here's the twist. Jordan wasn't afraid to take the road less traveled, even if it raised a few eyebrows. He left a trail of shattered defenses and awestruck opponents in his wake. But what if I told you that there were players, yes, NBA players and even legends, who found themselves trembling at the mere thought of going up against MJ? Before we get into the nitty-gritty, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the electrifying content. Now let's lace up and travel back in time to an era when a certain number 23 was not just a player but a phenomenon that struck fear into the hearts of opponents. When you talk 90s hoops, MJ's name resonates above all else. A titan of the game, he soared to heights that few even dared to dream of. Not once, but twice, he led the Chicago Bulls through a triumphant three-peat. And let's not forget that pristine 6-0 record in the NBA Finals, a feat so legendary, it's engraved in basketball lore. The year is 1995 to 1996, and John Sally, yep, the man himself, finds himself in the mix as a Chicago Bull. But it isn't any year. It's the year they knew they were untouchable. Why? Well, Sally reveals that every time they stepped onto that court, they could smell victory in the air. Why, you ask? Because every single opponent, no matter how fierce or determined, had one thing on their minds: fear of Michael Jordan. In an interview, Sally said, "I knew we weren't going to lose. When you walk in, you already know you're going to win. When you walk in, you see the other guys looking at you." Everybody was afraid of Michael. Everybody. This isn't a one-off confession. Nope, the fear MJ instilled was real, and it echoed across the league. Steve Kerr, you know, the clutch shooter and a key piece of the Bulls' puzzle, well, he had something to say too. And what was it? You walked on the floor back then and you looked down, you saw him, and you were kind of like, I don't think we are going to beat this guy. Everybody was just afraid of him. Steve Kerr, a witness to the phenomenon, added, well, he wasn't humble, but in a good way. Like he was, Michael just dominated games spiritually, emotionally. Kerr's words paint a picture of a player who didn't just play the game, he inhabited it, radiating an aura of invincibility. It's crystal clear, Michael Jordan possessed a mental edge that cast an unbreakable spell over his opponents. That kind of power doesn't show up on the stat sheet. It's in the way he carried himself, the way he stared down challenges unflinching. The mental dominance wasn't a quirk. It was a powerful weapon that propelled the Chicago Bulls to new heights. On January 12, 1993, the young Shaq, a fresh-faced rookie, stepped onto the hardwood against Michael Jordan. The Los Angeles Lakers superstar goes head-to-head with MJ's Chicago Bulls. Shaq played well, with 11 rebounds and 19 points, but the Bulls won, surprising Shaq and the Lakers. But 4 days later, Shaq's Magic face off against the Bulls once again, and this time it's a whole new ballgame. The Magic redeemed themselves with a thrilling 128-124 victory against the Bulls, shocking the basketball world. Jordan unleashed an astonishing 64 points, a record-breaking performance. But what's more intriguing? Shaq's confession that he was, well, let's just say, worried. On TNT, he said, "Since the statute of limitations is up, I was terrified out there. The whole game. For one, he's the greatest player. 2, I was worried about him dunking on me and having to go back and face the fellas. And then 3, he was just so hot. Like the stuff that I saw when I was in college on TV. It's like really real. I was terrified." Shaq, the towering force of nature, admitting to being downright terrified by none other than MJ? The Diesel, fearing a dunk from his airness? It's a reminder that even the legends we look up to can inspire a healthy dose of fear and respect. As I have said, the 90s were MJ's playground and the Eastern Conference was his battleground. It wasn't about winning games, it was about demoralizing entire franchises and striking fear into the hearts of opponents. Larry Bird, the hoops guru himself, shared a wild revelation. His players, yes, the ones he coached, were afraid of Michael Jordan. Larry Legend said, "My team was convinced they couldn't beat the Bulls as long as Jordan was there. Michael Jordan played the mind game better than almost anyone. He really knew how to get inside people's heads." Bird recounts one game in particular that left him puzzled and frustrated. His players were passing up shots out of sync. And why? It's the Michael Jordan effect. The mind game master had them second-guessing their every move. It's surprising to think that even the fiercest competitors like the Indiana Pacers felt the weight of his presence. But hey, when you're up against a basketball deity in his prime, it's understandable that hesitation sets in. Now, this NBA icon didn't just play, he dominated. His win-or-die attitude was etched into his very being, a driving force that propelled him to greatness and left his opponents in fear. Steve Nash, a 2-time MVP and basketball maestro, faced off against MJ 4 times when Jordan was with the Bulls. And Nash recently opened up on what it was like to face off against the basketball Goliath. He said, "Playing against him, the one thing that I think that he was unlike any other player I've played against is that there was a real fear playing against him." Michael Jordan had a serious aura and unmatched competitiveness. He had a fire that could ignite the whole court. According to Steve Nash, MJ's presence was not just a physical challenge, but also a psychological battle that opponents feared. MJ was riding high on his second NBA championship with the Chicago Bulls, hungry for a three-peat. And in the shadows, we have Rodney McCray, a season forward on a quest to extend his career beyond the hardwood's twilight. McCray had his sights set on championship glory, joining the Chicago Bulls for the 1992-1993 season. Little did he know he was stepping into the cauldron of Michael Jordan's relentless competitiveness. Insiders revealed how Jordan's constant challenges and taunts eroded McCray's confidence. Speaking to Sports Illustrated, he said, "He's the most viciously competitive player I've ever seen. He has practically ruined Rodney McCray for us. When the two players are on opposite teams in scrimmages, Jordan is in Rodney's face, screaming, 'You're a loser. You've always been a loser.' Rodney can hardly put up a jumper now." Fast forward. McCray did win that championship, but the journey was far from smooth. He averaged just 15.9 minutes per game, a far cry from his earlier performances. The intensity, the pressure, left its mark. And after that season, McCray hung up his sneakers, ending a chapter that had begun with hopes of glory. In 1995, the basketball world was buzzing with the return of the prodigal son, Michael Jordan. After a brief hiatus, MJ was back in action, donning that iconic Chicago Bulls jersey once again. In the first-round showdown against the Charlotte Hornets, he wasted no time leaving his imprint on the game. On the biggest possession of the game, Muggsy had the ball with the Hornets down 1. Jordan backed off of him and told him, "Shoot it, you effing midget." Muggsy shot it, and it didn't come close. A year later, the aftermath unfolds. Muggsy Bogues, in a candid moment, reveals the true impact of that single play. He told former Bulls assistant coach Johnny Bach that he thinks that moment changed his career. His shot, his confidence shattered. Now, was Jordan the sole reason for Muggsy Bogues' decline? That's up for debate. But one thing's for sure, the power of words and mental warfare are as real as it gets. It is unlikely that we'll ever see a player like Michael Jordan ever again. While there have been many great players since his era, there is only one Michael Jordan. We will not see a player this dominant for a long time, if at all, in the future. As you hit that like button and subscribe for more eye-opening NBA insights, take a moment to reflect on the fear that MJ instilled in his rivals. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep the love for the game alive. And remember, legends don't just leave a mark, they write their legacy in the very fabric of the sport.